Okay, questions? Raise your hand. Let's get the handheld mic to you. Who has the first question?
Coach, right here, I know it's going back a while, but I just wanted to ask, when you got to Tennessee, from Texas, and those first couple of years that you were with the program, how would you characterize it? Do you feel like it was a stabilization of the Tennessee athletic department compared to where things maybe are now? With the number of different ADs and where the football program was and the basketball program, do you feel like you kind of set a foundation of where things maybe are now? Not trying to put it all on your back, but
No, you know what? Dave Hart hired me. Dave Hart interviewed me back in 85 or 86 when I was an assistant at Ohio State, and he was an associate AD at East Carolina getting ready to become the AD, and we had known each other through that, and then me in the ACC, and actually before the final week or so I was at Texas, we had started talking a little bit indirectly, and so Dave, when he hired me, he said, we really need to build a program. He said, we've had good teams here, we've got a great tradition, but we're looking for stability, we're looking for consistency, and I can tell you our first year there we struggled, but our fan base, and I grew up 3 hours from Knoxville, and I had no idea the support that the Volunteers got, not only basketball, but football, every sport. It's really, truly amazing. I've never been around a fan base like what we have. And that was kind of my marching orders, to do that. And so we set out to do that. We targeted some young guys that we wanted to go after and try to bring in 5 or 6 guys that we were going to build around, and we were able to do that and got it going. And then, as you mentioned, there's been some different ADs in and out once Dave stepped away from it. But this administration is the best I've ever been around when you think about Randy Boyd as our president of our UT system, and Dondi Plowman is just, I've never been around anybody on campus that has led the way she has. And Danny White has been probably the first, well, he was, I think, the first AD hired by the president and the chancellor, and what he has done in the time that he's done it is, you talk about a makeover. It's amazing what he's done and what he's done for every sport. I mean, he says, hey, we want to be one of the best in the country, and he said, I got to do my job to get the budget where it needs to be, facilities and all that, and they have worked night and day to do that. And Tennessee is just, I'm telling you, it's a special place. It really is, and I said it last night, I've been blessed from the time I've gotten there, and but it's just all around from a university standpoint. I can't imagine there's a better place in the country right now to be associated with.
Joe Wright.
Josh Newman, LoneStarLive.com. Rick, you alluded to this last night. Rodney Terry was just talking about it. If you think back to like 2001, 2002, Rodney was at UNC Wilmington. Kelvin Sampson offers him a job at Oklahoma. He turns it down, and he said that was at the advice of Frank Haith. Mm-hmm. What do you remember of that situation and that time when you were wanting to bring Rodney on?
Well, the one thing I've always done from the time I've been able to be a head coach, I've always relied on my assistant coaches to help hire who we hire, because I think the chemistry of the staff is certainly one of the most important things. And Frank had been with me, and I had known Frank, and he was talking about Rodney. They were friends, and he just had always talked and said, hey, if we ever get a chance to hire someone, a young guy that he said I think is really, really good as Rodney, but I do remember that Frank told me that and Frank did ask me what would happen if Rodney took the Oklahoma job, and I just said, out of my relationship and my respect for Kelvin and I've known each other forever, I said I wouldn't do that just because of, and that was just the way I thought at that time. But then a year later, we had his opening, and Rodney was the only guy we really talked to about and hired him.
Wes Rucker with 24/7 Sports. Rick, I know last season, obviously, y'all showed you could make a run in this tournament without Zakai when he was injured, but with him back now, controlling things the way that he does, how much more security does that give you as a coach, mentally going into games in this tournament?
Well, Z has been such a huge part of our, I mean, I've said it many times, we recruited him, we thought we were going to redshirt him. And after 2 days, we thought we maybe should redshirt Kennedy. And, I mean, from the time he walked on campus, we had no idea that we knew he had been good that last week of at the Peach Jam, and we really had no idea he was going to do that. But his DNA has impacted our program more than any player since we've been at Tennessee. And maybe anybody I've coached, I mean, what he does and what you see him do out there, he's doing it every day in practice. But, yeah, when you got a guy that you know that's going to play like that and give it to you every night, and he's going to be a guy that his teammates totally respect, you know, I guess as a coach, you go into the game, the biggest thing is you're hoping he doesn't get in foul trouble, he doesn't get hurt, because he means so much to us.
Hey, Rick, Gene Wong, The Washington Post. Great to see you again.
Good to see you.
Even though you're on different parts of the bracket, I wanted to ask you about your friendship with Tom Izzo, how it's grown over the years, and specifically, if you recall, what you recall about your trip to Kuwait together for Hoops for Troops. Tom mentioned you guys had a lot of time to bond on the plane ride over.
Well, Tom is really, in this business, you know, we're kind of the same era, and Tom is, we met in Columbus, Ohio, when he was an assistant at Michigan State, and I was an assistant at Ohio State, and since that time, I mean, and then we went on the trip, and that was a great trip for so many of us. I mean, going over there, you know, we all loved it. I mean, it was, you talk about coaching, how we had teams, and we're trying to win it as much as we possibly could. But I remember that was the first time in Ohio. The next time I saw Tom, we were in Detroit, and I'd watched a high school game in Detroit. Then I went over to watch this young guy play, and Tom walked in with with Judd Heathcote, and I'm watching this guy, and he's shooting some air balls, and I don't even know if Tom remembers this, but I kept hearing Judd say, "You got me here seeing this guy?" And I'm watching this guy, and he makes a couple threes, and he shoots another air ball. And I'll never forget, Judd Heathcote looked at me, and he said, "If you bring Gary Williams up here, he will fire you." And so I go back and tell Gary. Gary said, "What do you think about the kid?" And I told him. He said, "Well, I'm not going to go see him play." And I didn't realize until years later that I was set up because it was Steve Smith. And so Judd and Tom, one of them set me up, you know. And but I did learn a lesson not to listen to other people. But Tom is, you know, we played the last 2 years in a close scrimmage, and we played the exhibition game this year for the Maui Relief Fund. I mean, he loves it. I mean, and you can't help but be around him, and he cares so much about the game. And but our friendship has been there for a long time, and I think it always will be.
Coach Steve Reed from the Associated Press. Listen, I know when the brackets come out, you're not supposed to look ahead, but it's human nature that you do. And when you see Texas in your path, what do? I mean, do you roll your eyes like, I'd rather it be somebody else, I mean, because of the connections there? Or what goes through your mind when you see them potentially in your path to the Final Four?
Well, I will tell you this. When the bracket came out, honestly, all I looked at was St. Pete. I tell our team that as soon as the meeting's over with, we go in and we talk about it's a 4-team tournament here in Charlotte. And again, I said it last night, I have yet to look at the full bracket. But for some reason, when our number came up, I'm like, will it be Clemson or will it be Texas? And I don't know if they do that intentionally. I don't know. But, you know, it's always tough playing people that you know you. I mean, we know each other. I mean, there's not going to be a lot of secrets now. We've been around each other, all of us. And you look at his staff, I mean, there's a lot of guys on that staff that have been a big part of my career that, you know, I'm just blessed that I was able to spend that time with them. But I think in all honesty, do you want to match up with your friends? Like talking about Tom, I mean, I don't particularly look forward to that. Even though we didn't work together, we've known each other longer than I've known anybody on that staff, and I don't look forward to it. But, you know, we all know we have a job to do, and when we toss it up, we're going to try to do what we do, and that's try to win a basketball game.
Back right.
Thanks. Joe Rexroth from The Athletic. Rick, just wondering if you've been able to watch or enjoy at all what DJ Burns has been doing lately with NC State, and also just what you remember from his time in your program.
Well, one, he's got a wonderful family, and, you know, we thought DJ could be a player, and there's no doubt we wouldn't have offered him a scholarship when we did, and you know, if you really want to see DJ, you should get with my strength and conditioning coach. He has a picture on his phone when he left Tennessee. You wouldn't recognize him. And but DJ, just like he does now in practice, you knew he could score, got great hands, knew how to get the ball where he wanted to do it. And I think that, you know, one thing I really respect about DJ, even when he left, he would often send texts back to people just saying how much he learned while he was at Tennessee, and he understands more now than he did then, which happens. It really does. And he, when he left, went to Winthrop, you know, I think he got some great people around him. And again, he's got a wonderful family. But no, I'm not surprised because the guy knows how to score the basketball. And he knows, as whether you want to say he's in shape or out of shape, he knows what he's doing when he's out there, and he knows how to get around and be effective. And so I'm not really surprised by it.
Back left.
Ryan Shumpert, RTI. Just how comforting is it entering a game like this to have Jemai and Zakai on the defensive end when you're going to face two really talented guards on the other side?
Well, again, we're going to have to. It'll be more than those guys. I mean, they have some explosion there that they certainly Max can get going. But you know, we recruited Tyrese, and we know what he's capable of, obviously. But Dylan DeSuze was in our league for a little bit, and recruited Dylan, and so we know their personnel, obviously, but they're going to be they're going to play extremely hard. I expect them to be out there just like they did last night. They did a great job of really forcing their physicality, I thought, on Colorado State, and I expect pretty much the same thing, and so we'll have to be ready and have a number of different guys that can try to guard those guys.
Sure, right.
Coach Rob Lewis with VolQuest.com. Coach, you guys are so detailed in your scouts in the regular season. When you get to this time of the year with the quick turnarounds, how much can you really get into the details versus how much you just try to be the best version of yourself?
Well, you know, I think they would say the same thing, that they probably have seen a lot of stuff that we've seen, and we do some similar things. I mean, some things that we've used in the past, Rodney does, and so some of it, you know, you'll be familiar with, but we have today, and I think this time the biggest thing you want your guys as fresh as you can keep them, and both mentally and physically, and you want to obviously make sure that everybody's healthy. So, but we'll have time. It's different in terms of, you know, maybe the speed that you would normally work with, getting ready. You won't do that as much because again you want them to be as fresh as they can come game time. But we'll get it covered. You know, we started on them today like we normally will with whoever we played, and we'll have all day today to do what we need to do and what we always do, and then we'll have tomorrow to do the same thing.
Steve Lehman, News Channel 5 in Nashville. Rick, both Santi and Josiah just spoke about the importance of being aggressive and physical in every game, but especially in this game against Texas. Are those the two biggest keys you look for when a game starts to see if your team has it and brought it that day, if they live up to those two areas?
Well, I think the first 4 minutes of games are extremely important, and I think that you do, you know, coaches, when we start, we're all sitting around thinking, are we going to be ready mentally, physically? Are we going to shoot the ball well, all that? You know, Tom and I actually were talking a little bit this morning. He made a great comment. He said, you know, there's nights when people don't think you play well. You play really well, but you don't shoot well. And there's nights when you shoot well that you don't play real well. But you know, shooting makes up for a multitude of sins sometimes. But at the start of the game, you're looking for the details because you know early in the game what you've talked about, and you want to make sure. But with that said, you got to be prepared for them to come with something else, a little tweak here or there. But you want to see your players on the edge. You want to see them locked into the details that you've talked about, and know that I think this time of year we all have a pretty good idea of what you better expect. If you don't, you won't be here very long.
Any other questions? Yep.
You mentioned Zakai, the DNA a lot with Zakai. What does that look like? We see the things on the court, but what does that look like off the court and, you know, in the locker room, the bus, things like that? How does that translate to the team?
Well, what you see on the court is what we see on the court every day. I mean, he's going to go at it. I mean, he's no different. That's why I think he's consistent, because he does it every day. And his teammates, they love him because of, I mean, that's hard to do. I mean, you talk about mental toughness, to be able to bring it every day. do what he does, and he's fearless. I think he's been through a lot more stuff, difficulty things off the court in his life that more so than anything on the court, and I think he takes nothing for granted. He's always been a fighter. You talk to his mom, and from the time he was small, you know, he didn't run from it. He embraced it. He's fearless, and he's really competitive. And one of his biggest faults is when he's not going well, he's too hard on himself. I mean, he really expects it. And if you watch this, like if you were at tomorrow, we have a shoot around, or today at the end, I can assure you when we're done, he will be one of the last guys that will still be there shooting. He's a guy that's going to come back, put his time in. If you watched how he went through his rehabilitation from a year ago to get his knee right, tells you a lot about him too, because he thought he could play 2 months before they let him play, and it's just his mental makeup, and it's infectious. I think it has rubbed off some guys, and he has meant more to this program than people can't even imagine, because he's talking about the little things in the locker room and all that. I think when he walks in the locker room, he's the same every day. And one of the great things about him is he is consistent. I've never seen him in a bad mood, other than when he gets mad at himself. I've learned how to, tweak him a little bit to where he'll get mad at me. But I love the guy. I don't know what it would be like now not having him, because he's been such an important part of our team.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you guys.